Hey, what's going on? Excuse me. I guess this is Mind Spiders Part 3, because although I did a pretty decent job of kind of explaining the experiences as I perceived it, I didn't really go into any detail into sort of how it affected me and why the experience stayed with me my whole life. And so, I'm at one of my favorite sort of spots I come when I want to, not do anything with my character and just have a smoke or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, how did it affect me? Why? There's two reasons, really. The first is sort of with the whole, perceptually, subjectively, perhaps both, month-long journey that I had as some sort of space captain. I'm not going to tell the whole story again, so if you saw part 1, you know what I mean. And the thing about that, I think, that struck me was that whether I had actually gone somewhere and either relived moments from some other life or lived moments from a life in a parallel reality or just had a really extremely vivid lucid dream that lasted a long time, whichever one of those things it was is an interesting thing to think about, something that's quintessentially almost unprovable one way or the other, so it's no sense worrying about whether it really happened. Because in a way, that's not the most important thing about it. And I guess the important thing about it was the fact that I had gone and, at least from my perspective, lived a good portion of a whole other life. And in that life, I had absolutely forgotten everything about the reality that I live in my, my current body, my real meat and potatoes body, not this body made of electrons that you're looking at right now. And so anyway, I had been away from this actual reality, the meat and potatoes reality, let's call it, in this other reality long enough and deep enough that I had completely and utterly forgotten about the actual reality in which I was laying in my bed. But the point is I came back to the reality in which I was laying in my bed, and it took me a couple of seconds to kind of remember where the fuck I was at. But as soon as I realized where I was at, every single bit of it just came back to me instantly. So it had been, in a way, completely forgotten. But when I came back to it, it was instantly remembered. And I think what's interesting about that is I also happen to believe that when a person's body dies and your consciousness leaves it, you go back to the reality you exist in when you're not inhabiting a body, which obviously you would perceive differently because you're operating on a different wavelength of senses. I think that reality is very much like the reality that I forgot when I went to be a space captain for a while. When you come back to it, you're just like, where am I? Oh yeah, I'm here, right? Fuck yeah, I remember this reality. And that sort of right there is the crux of the feeling I got from that whole experience, was that I hadn't been for a long time, but after that I was really not worried about dying. Because I figure it very well will be like waking up from the deepest dream one's ever had, which was exactly like the dream I'd had of being a space captain, but the difference was that it only lasted a month, and I came back as a fully grown adult who remembered a complete lifetime, not like I was being born into a newborn mind. So yeah, that was kind of the one thing, and that kind of got me into that whole thought process, and it's just something that I go back and think about constantly. It sort of ties into the other thing I was kind of mulling about the whole multi-light-year long-distance space travel thing, where, what do you do with a body and a consciousness to keep it viable for tens of thousands of years or hundred thousands of years, with, however long it takes to get to some other place in our vastly separated universe and galaxies. And what would that do to a consciousness if I was away for a month in some other reality and had a bit of trouble coming back to the one I was in, and to be honest, I was kind of disappointed to come back to the one that I usually find myself in, because it's a little bit pedantic sometimes. It's a little bit samey, you know? I don't have a lightsaber or Jedi powers, and that upsets me sometimes. Ah, fuck, Jedi mind trick Squirrel. You know, it really surprises me sometimes how easy it is for me to derail myself. Right. Long distance travel. So, buddy of mine mentioned suspended animation, freeze the body. I'm like, okay. I said, you wouldn't want to lock away a consciousness in just non-sensory sort of experience, because I think naturally it would pull away from that. And then, you know, you'd be basically thawing a corpse out at the end of it, because the consciousness would have just separated. I have no idea if that would actually happen, but I have a feeling that maybe it has something to do with the trouble that they're having with, you know, freezing complex organisms. Another one was, okay, create a virtual space for them to exist in, you know, kind of Matrix style while they're on this journey. Cool. You'd definitely be able to switch it up and exist in many different types of realities to keep yourself amused, but again, if you're in it for 100,000 years, well, how do you come back out? You know, are you going to want to come back out? Are you going to give a shit? Perhaps the consciousness will have evolved to the point where it no longer even needs to come back. So yeah, that's the thought that was tied into that whole kind of space captain adventure that affected me more so than whether or not that actually quote-unquote happened. The other thing was, of course, meeting that seeming other intelligence, whether that was a fragment of my own consciousness. I don't believe it was, simply because it was so alien. And unusual and strange, and it seemed to know things that I didn't, and answer questions in ways that I didn't expect. It may very well have been an aspect of myself. I'm perfectly willing to entertain that idea too. There was some famous wise guy, and I mean wise person, but I say wise guy because it's kind of a funny double entendre. There was some sort of famous wise guy, I can't remember who said that if any, you know, normal person ever kind of saw their own soul, their own naked soul, they might find it more alien than anything they might encounter outside of themselves, and find it just as unrecognizable. So maybe I did find a facet of myself and simply spoke to a deeper part of my mind. Either way, it's pretty fantastic, whether it's an entirely separate intelligent consciousness of definitely non-human origin that I encountered, or whether it was some facet of myself that was so long forgotten or deeply buried that I completely didn't recognize it as an aspect of myself. Either way, it's still a pretty fucking far-out experience, and it regularly blows my mind to think about it. Now, at some point while I was sitting on my, or standing there in my little smoking spot, I had thought of something else that I kind of wanted to touch on. And for the life of me, I can't remember what. Which would make this a rather short squirrel. So maybe I'll just wander around here. I'm actually scouting also while I'm doing this. I'm scouting a location for Blood, Bone, and Darkness Episode 3. And as a little teaser of information, Episode 3 is going to have a little bit more of backstory for the fourth character that you see in Episode 2 that is the female character, and her code name is Pain. So you'll get a bit more of her present story and her backstory, so that'll give you a little bit of an idea what to expect, I guess, although it's going to be the usual sort of epic weirdness that we're trying to go for, so don't know when it's coming out, when it's done, you know, sometime probably early in the new year, maybe end of January, I don't know. Still in the process of writing it, so You know what, maybe I did actually touch on all the points, because, I mean... Yep. I think I'm kind of done. Just, I had to shit out that last little point. Sorry, I guess it's Mind Squirrel's 2.5. So yeah, you know, don't stop thinking. Be excellent to one another, and there's a tree. Anyway, have a good one. See you later.